I mean, Aaron and Ken got in, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so.
Technology is always great until it doesn't work.
All right. We are live, it says.
All right.
There we go. You're recording now. Can you make Aaron a picture, if you would, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
There you go.
I was wondering
Okay.
if I wasn't seeing myself. Sorry, guys. All right. Well, good evening. We'll go ahead and call to order the Parks and Recreation Committee regular agenda for August 12th, 2020. Roll call. Myself, I am present, as well as Mr. Richard and Mr. Bodkins. Good evening. Good to see you guys again.
Thank you.
All right. Just to get right into it, if we could get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 14th and March 11th meeting, that'd be great.
I would like to approve the minutes.
Which one? The March 14th? So, or April 14th?
Yes, I'm sorry. April 14th, March 11th.
Yes.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Ken, what motion were you making?
Well, which minutes are we approving? We had two of them on there.
You have
Well, I didn't know if we could do them simultaneously, or if I could just say approval minutes of number 3 on tonight's agenda. But if we can have a motion to approve the minutes for the April 14th meeting.
Okay. I'll approve the minutes April 14th.
and I'll second that.
Thank you.
Very good. And then I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes on March 11th, please.
Make a motion to approve the March 11th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
And I will second that motion.
Very good. I agree as well. Item number 4, to maybe have a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the published agenda for tonight.
And I will second that.
Very good. Motion goes forward. Tonight's discussion items, there's several of them on the agenda. Starting off with the East Park baseball field. I know that we've kind of talked about it in passing, about some of the different options that, we've been in discussions with the mayor about, and some of his ideas, and just wanting to know what everybody's thinking about that. I know there's several options that we can consider for, immediate projects or projects down the road. So what does everybody think about the East Park baseball field down there?
Well, I think it's going to be a very good idea. We need to class that end of town up a little bit, and I think that would be a real, because it was always very popular.
Yeah, it was. What do you think, Mr. Richard?
Well, I agree with that. I think at the one time, wasn't that I don't think any real games were played. It was more of a practice. Well, no, I take that back. There was like games played when a certain league was there.
It was an adult league.
Yeah, I remember growing up, and there was we always had big leagues down there with local sponsored teams in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And I know that they've had a lot of summer ball leagues down there in recent years, but it's pretty much that vacant. But I know that we've had discussions with the mayor about some options recently, and I'm not sure how that has transpired. But I know there's also some great ideas for dog parks on the future agenda that would be kind of relatively inexpensive to consider going forward. But there are options other than, making it exclusive a baseball field, especially if everybody does have plenty of space in town to play. And I know that the team that we were talking about, they said hey, as long as we have a place to play, they're open to using that land down there for other things. But I'd like to use it. It's just an eyesore. And I agree with Mr. Bodkins that growing up down there in Mardo Lane apartments, I was there every day. It would be nice. 3/4 of that park is beautiful. But that ball field is getting ugly. So,
well, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think the ball field, there's some, it's been kept up in the sense of the actual field. The trimming and such like this. Matter of fact, I saw some folks practicing on it just the other day, but there's some cosmetic things that definitely need to be taken care of. The issue right now, of course, is with this COVID issue, I would say it's kind of a see what happens as far as the time frame for this year goes, because we're already into August. Obviously, we'll be getting out of these here pretty soon. So I think as far as the field itself, we probably put that on a future list. I think I'm going to ask Tom, since I see him flash on here, if he had any thoughts on that.
Well, thanks, Michael and Aaron, Ken. The most direct approach that I'll take on this is something I learned as a county commissioner, and that was the expression that it's under advisement. Well aware of the issues here, and we're taking a look at that. But it's an administrative issue, and we will work through that. One of the things we're considering, however, is moving away from what would be called use agreements, which unfortunately has been, depending on who you talk to at this age level within the baseball world, has been kind of used as a gateway. And really what brings this issue up is the idea of having a separate team for separate travel baseball. And I'm not sure that most of the players that will be on these teams that we've been talking about, they won't be Galleon area kids. Excuse me, they'll be Galleon area kids. They'll be, and so what I want to do is make sure that the parks, no matter what shape different folks think, let's say in this case East Park's in, that they're used primarily by Galleon kids. As far as the use agreements, so that we can talk a lot or a little about that. They have not been followed real well. And when you look at them, the maintenance responsibilities, I think, are unclear. And with this new proposal, what the maintenance level that's expected, I think, is something that we're spending some time looking at. Last change, if you will, that's under consideration is to see if we can find someone who would work for several months a year on behalf of the city, who would be responsible for making sure the maintenance got done and scheduling all the fields. So tomorrow early afternoon, gentlemen come in. Our hope would be that he'll help the city with that. What that would do, I think the main part of it would take away from one league or another the ability to schedule and at times maybe block the other team's access to the field. So I think there are plenty of ball fields, and our energies and these dads' energies, I wish were more directed. Our energies will be. I wish theirs were more directed at improving the fields we have that have been used, rather than taking their time and energy and supposedly their sponsorship money off to East Park to have their separate baseball program. So anyway, I hope that responds at least to some of the things that were said. We're looking at it, and the same holds true for the Fisher building and how that's going to be access to that's going to be handled this year. So, but they're itching to get on the field, Mike. One last thing I'd say about disagreeing. It's not like it's next year. These guys who have talked with each one of you, I think, and I've talked with them, they're anxious to get out there. They want an answer. You know, we're sizing it up.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Does anybody have any comments or anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
I'd like to address this to Mr. O'Leary and to you, Aaron.
Yeah.
You told me about this proposed person at the park. Now,
You broke up. I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. You called me and told me about a Mr. Hay, I believe, is a boy that was interested in doing this project.
Yeah.
Have you guys sat down and talked to him? Or-
Yeah. Well, I've had a couple of conversations afterwards, nothing in depth. Deferred to the mayor's office, and I know that they've been up there and spoken with the mayor at least once. I'm not sure if more. But you know, this is a situation between the mayor's office, literally, and this organization. Now, they did submit a request for information. They are a 501c3. Actually, half of their team is currently in Galion Youth Baseball, and one of their main coaches is the vice president of Galion Youth Baseball. So, and the other 6 or 7 kids are from, I believe, Crawford, Lexington, Ontario, or Northmore, respectively. So, you know, they were willing to invest their own money, make that field absolutely beautiful. And, you know, but like I said, afterwards, I did confirm with Mr. Hay that if he can't do East Park, as long as he has space that these kids can play, which we all encourage, then, you know, we can focus on other projects. But again, I defer to the mayor if he'd like to comment on Mr. Bodkin's question.
Yeah, we spent a couple of hours literally with 3 representatives. And there, I would say, as far as the youth baseball, it unfortunately is in flux right now. It haven't been around that for, you know, over 50 years, that being Galion Little League. The level of that we're running the risk of the adults taking the fun out of it for the kids. And I suspect there's kind of 2 sides, and I suspect both sides are tuned in or will hear this so soon after I say it. Then you know how things are this day and age. But my hope is to not allow fields, city parks, to be the way that these adults, you know, in leadership roles in a youth program, fight over whose field and which team. I really don't want to be part of that. I think there's plenty of fields, and you know, it sounds silly, but I just wish they would get along. Once their kids are a little older, they'll realize the relative importance, and that by fighting like this among these 2 groups, they're, you know, really taking the fun out of it, or the air out of the balloon. So there's my lecture. I think I answered the question as well as given the unsolicited lecture, but we met for a couple hours. I met for a couple hours with the league officials, you know, who allegedly have misused the exclusive right to the field. So the takeaway is, it's unfortunate that there's always tension. You probably did it as a kid or Little League. Everybody seems like the dads and sometimes the moms fight, but this is a situation where it's you know, there's groups trying to use the field or supposedly use the field, and then make well-intentioned on the other side, well-intentioned commitments to fix up the field, but without getting too thin-skinned. That field was ready to go. a couple of times within the last 5 years. And when it doesn't get constant play, which it didn't because the adult league kind of fizzled, then you can see how quickly Mother Nature is in charge and sort of takes control. So while it may be turned into a field over the next year or two that people are proud of, it's also definitely going to need maintenance. And I think when you take a longer term view, even though these organizers of the group that wants to do East Park have younger children, there's a bit of a gap between their 11 years old kids and their younger ones. And so you probably did that, I don't know, when you were a younger adult, and I know Aaron has, and that being working the Little League program. And so you know how it's kind of handing the baton from one to the next. So, all right, I'll stop at that point, but I hope that helps.
That helps quite a bit, but I do understand what you were, because I was involved in letting adults have that field and let them have it exclusively. And they was care of it and this and that. And you're right, it went belly up. Nobody to work. The leagues didn't show up. The teams didn't show up. So letting them have the field was not a good idea because nobody else could use it. And you're right. These are parks that belong to the people too. Everybody.
Yeah. That's why thank you for saying that. That's why we're trying to weigh in, but the you know, they're pretty anxious. They want to get going. I think they're frustrated with regard to what they want to do as much as we're all frustrated with how things are these days. But that's
one more thing I have to say is when I there and he said they would let anybody use the field as long as they didn't need it. So they would have to set a schedule and then anybody could use the field.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. That was in their proposal, and that was our understanding as well.
Yeah, well, that isn't a bad idea if it would work.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't even the what happens that leads to the padlocks are when you allow it to be open and troublemaking kids drive on it with a bicycle or track it up, and then that kind of particular infield, that dirt infield, skin infield can get pretty tore up and made unusable just by 15 minutes of, I don't want to, vandalism sounds like I'm really a fuddy-duddy, but that kind of misbehavior, the kid doing it probably thinks it's fun or funny. So that's what happens. And then the folks who start out well-intentioned, like, well, I'm not going to fix this field up, to have a bunch of kids ride on it, or to have 2 or 3 neighborhood dogs use it to relieve themselves. So I think that's why we've seen the last few years, the leagues being what some critics say are jerky about locking it up. It's because of the damage that's done. So, all right.
I appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Richard, anything to add to the topic, or can we move on to the next?
I I don't have anything.
If we could take a look at I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone?
No.
All right, on section B, update on the freeze project, I think if you guys don't mind, I think we can defer that for a future conversation if indicated, because I think we pretty much got updated where we are at in that current state. Does everybody agree to that? Or does anybody have any questions about the freeze project in this committee? No?
No.
All right.
I think we should table that till a future time here.
Exactly. Okay. Very good. All right. Let's move on to the pickleball court. Now let's
just real quickly. I wonder if Julie got a copy of a sort of a draft of some updated costs. She attended the Port Authority meeting yesterday. I don't know if you got a copy of that.
No, I don't get any copies of any agendas or anything.
Okay, so what I think what would be useful is to get a copy of that.
Okay.
And everybody take a look at it so that when we when you do pick up the subject again, we're working with kind of updated costs because I just think that's important information.
Thank you. All right. Off to the fun part now. Pickleball
Yeah.
courts. I just found out at 11 o'clock this morning what pickleball is. A gentleman called me. And the fun thing is when we were in Sanibel Island last year, I was like, what in heaven's name are those people doing on those tiny tennis courts? And so it looks like a lot of fun. Mayor, did this come through your office? I believe it did. And what's going on with that?
Yeah, I know there are impassioned advocates for pickleball, and it is I think higher speed, but smaller sized, higher speed but on a smaller court. They use kind of a big wiffle ball, not to oversimplify, and you hit it with something that looks like a big bamboo fan or a large ping pong paddle. And
It's like, I told my wife, it's like table tennis, but you have to walk to hit the ball.
yeah,
over
it
the net.
is.
So-
And the people who are advocates are people that you would also see on the tennis courts that do recreational tennis. Kind of convinced it's something that it may be a little tight yet this year, but what we're looking at is the I think it's the city of Twinsburg, it may be the village of Twinsburg, did a project real similar to what we think would work. What we're suggesting is we'll take the tennis court at South Park and basically take up the hardware, resurface it with not a competition level. So there may be some cracks, resurface it, seal it perhaps with a colored seal, and then stripe it for pickleball.
It
So I
doesn't
think-
sound like it's that expensive.
Huh? No,
It
21
doesn't
grand,
sound like,
or excuse me,
21 grand?
25 grand is what they spent. And I may get this off a little bit, but I think you can turn 2 tennis courts into 8 pickleball because you turn the courts the other direction. If that,
Gotcha.
so don't hold me to that, but I think by giving it a try at South Park, we can take a facility that's rarely used and see if it works, see if there's the interest level. Was advised that you need to have wind screens, so that's something that we'd want to budget in and just real preliminary plans to check with the local canvas shop, see if they did a great job for us with screens out at the splash park, so they may be able to help us with the windscreen. And I'm sure there's a dozen other athletic equipment suppliers that will sell us one but it was advised you should have a windscreen up. I guess it makes sense. You got a wiffle ball. So that's about what I've got on pickleball. I don't know. We're real good at starting projects late in the season. I'm tempted to at least begin it this year, even though we're budget constrained, kind of push ourselves and see if we can't get a month maybe of usage in the middle to late fall. So that's the pickleball update.
all right, good deal. I forgot to mention, along with pickleball, is that Mayor, I did get a couple of estimates on, if you guys recall, in the last time we met, we were talking about the cement-based cornhole boards. You just mentioned it, and they're running about I'd say just between $1,000 and $1,200 per board. And if we were to consider something like that, maybe down to that old horseshoe pit, shoot, we can even do a fundraiser and get the brick foundation instead of grass between, and take donations for each brick with a name like we did uptown. So you're looking maybe.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think down in the other projects part of the agenda that the sort of unfinished business stuff is some other work in that area. So I'll hold off on that. And I think cleaning that area up, modernizing it with something like cornhole is a good idea.
Good deal. Mr. Richard, Mr. Bodkins, anything to discuss with pickleball or moving
No.
on to the dog parks?
I have to admit, I never heard about it until the meeting. But I've done a little research and it does look interesting. So if it's something that will make something nice for South Park, which is like the mayor said, the tennis court there is basically little or no use. So this would be a good opportunity for that.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Then if
Kenny?
it catches on there, I think in Bucyrus, they play it inside. If I'm not mistaken, the pickleball crowd plays in the Y, but
Mayor, I think Mark Baker, when he called me, told me that the Y here in Galleon does it once in a while on Saturdays, but they go to All Miller Park for outdoors, and I
yeah,
think you're right. Cyrus fly as well. So,
Okay.
all right, be
Anyway.
cool. All right.
anything Bucyrus does, we can do better.
Right. Exactly. I'm the one who brought up the dog park. I informed everybody last time we met that I had been given a call, but there really hasn't been a lot of communication with anybody. You know, nobody's contacted me about the dog park since. You know, I've done a little research myself. They look relatively inexpensive, but you know, as we all know, if we've looked into it a little bit, it's pretty much about the land and, you know, that big chunk that we need and divide these dogs up so the pit bulls aren't killing the chihuahuas and all that good stuff. So,
Yep.
I mean, Mary, do you think, or do you have anything have you been hearing anything from anybody
No,
in town
but I
about
think
dog
it's
park?
constant. I think it's an unmet expectation, to be honest with you. And I also agree with you, it's not a huge expense.
Mhm.
Looked at some numbers. I've only been to 2 of them, so I'm not gonna exaggerate. I was at one down at Alum Creek or somewhere in Delaware County, that the 3-sided fence parking lot, 2 divisions, one for little dogs, one for big dogs.
Mhm.
Other side was the reservoir itself, so the dogs would run out there. The other one
Right.
I've never been to, but is over there in Iberia. And one of the neat things about that facility over there is there's like play features and an obstacle course and those sorts of things.
You talk about the A-frame out there on the right as you
Yeah.
leave in Dorchester Marion? Yeah, that's a neat place.
It's okay. You know, one of the bad things about it, I'm not interested in, is having an admission charge, but you know, that's the trade-off. And it's, to me, I'm just tossing out a number, but in the 40 to 50,000 bucks. One of the multipliers, if you like to do armchair estimating, is we're paying $20 a foot for the fence at the south end of the bike path. And that's 6 foot, a 6 foot fence. So, you know, maybe that would be a little low for big dogs that jump, but that just give you a little bit of a rule of thumb. So, you know, you can step something off. The 2 locations the city owns, I think, are most easy to put into play is in what I would describe as the southwest part of Ammons, kind of below the dam. There's a lot of folks that take their dogs back there and let them swim, particularly when the water in Ammons is a little bit higher than it usually is this time of year. So, you know, you could do that, clean that area up, stick it in the parking lot, and, you know, you could, as Aaron said a minute ago, it's not real expensive. And then the other kind of perennial candidate for use of some sort, but this might fit, would be out at Kobe Park. Those would be 2 areas that the city owns that in my mind lend themselves to this. I think it's a good project. I think it's kind of working its way up the freeze project list to be, you know, to describe where I think it's at and answer, well, why don't we do it? You know, we might be able to in the near future. So anyways, that's dog park.
All right. Mr. Richard, Mr. Bodkins, any thoughts or any additions or?
Well, the only thought I had was, I know the east side tennis court ramp.
Yeah.
But I never seen anybody on it. Is there something else we can do with that? What do you think, Mike?
Well, now I have to say, I have seen some kids on that periodically. As far as getting back, talking about the dog park, I kind of like the idea of putting something like that in Kobe, because Kobe has been one of those parks that really doesn't fit into any real mold anywhere. What I mean? So this would be a good opportunity, and I know for a fact that there is people that take their dogs out and walk that area too. So
Mhm.
good consideration again.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I was,
on
I just
the,
had a
if
thought.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
No, I was just saying, Mayor, I'll lose my train of thought. It just dawned on me that if we look into this, as the mayor alluded to, going up the freeze ladder a little bit within a year or so, it's relatively inexpensive. And if we could put two of them in, one at the southwest corner of Amons and Kobe for a minimal investment, and, you know, give the people in the area and Galleon two more options, or two options in total to pick and choose from. Both would be a decent idea. And then we wouldn't have to pick up all the dog poop out at Amons, and they would actually take them too. So maybe kill two birds with one stone there. We'll keep the other area on there clean. All right. Does
The
anybody
East
have
Park,
anything
that's
else?
what I was going to comment on. That area out
sorry?
there, Nikki and I, we agree with you. You don't see much use there.
Mhm.
And one of the projects that was cut, but out of this year's freeze request, you might remember, was a zip line.
Yeah.
And the next time you're out there, just the tennis court and that little half pipe ramp there, that is is, I think, enough higher than the park ground to the east that we'd envisioned having not a small, but, you know, a large public zip line that would go there. So I think that we absolutely agree is that part of East Park doesn't have much use. But for the COVID, and, you know, you couldn't encourage people to come to the park anyway, we would have built that this year, and it'll resurface next year when we look at the freeze projects that we're going to request. So I hope that answers it. It needs something else out there.
Oh yeah, agree. Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
This is for the 14, 15-year-olds, you know, maybe that age group. It's not for little kids. That zip line in the new playground is for the 7, 8-year-olds. And some of the friction we've had, complaints about the new park at Hi-C Park, I've seen that's one of the toys that the 13, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds hanging out, that's one that they want to play on. And so, well, it's more for little kids. I think if you put something out there for adolescents, it would give something for the neighborhood kids, or however you want to describe the kids there, that, you know, a new toy, yeah, it's a toy. I was going to call it a tool. It isn't a tool. It's a damn toy. But anyways, that's what I'm with you. Something with that part of East Park.
All right. Good deal. Any other comments on the dog park, or are we ready to move on for other park projects and other discussion?
Let's move on.
All right. With everything going on right now, I think we're in a very good place overall. Mayor, do you have any information or updates coming up in the next quarter or anything other than what we've discussed?
No, I'll make it quick. Some things that we've been looking at, and I promise to make it quick. One thing, the projects that got cut from the free center requests, I think those are come to the top of the list. And remember, it's more shelter space, in additional indoor shelter space at East Park, replacing the main shelter house at Heisey Park, and a couple of other things. I am mindful of the need to demolish the now unnecessary bathroom that's real close, next to where Aaron's talking about, to put those those permanent cornhole. I think redoing that corner right there is real important. And so first we'll get that thing knocked down, and then we can plan how many horseshoe pits and how many cornhole courts you could put into that area. So it doesn't get used much, and that's a shame. So that's most. I know I'm forgetting something else that got cut from freeze, but we're going to take a look at that. Two more things quickly. Video cameras. I'm sort of grew up in the 60s or the 70s, and I don't like, detection and, a camera everywhere you look, but I'm sick and tired of it. So with today's technology, you can, we have the splash park, there's a camera there. We're going to take action pretty quick to get a set of cameras down at that new park. Some of the complaints that have happened, they kind of rise and then go away about misbehavior down there at the park. There's been a little bit of intentional destruction of property. Excuse me. And so we're going to begin to get the estimates put together and provide the security and the protection of property that I think we need and deserve this day and age in the parks.
Okay, that was a question that was brought up during last night's council meeting, but it wasn't related to the subject. I told them to come on and for this committee, but I don't see them on. So.
Oh, I see what you mean. As far as the issue down at the park.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I've reached out to the superintendent. The short of that is I think we're getting a meeting that would have school officials, our district resource officer, the cop at the school, if you will, and some people from City Hall, and try to come up with a if you will, a positive way to avoid some of the complaints and the occasional need to call the cops. So we'll see how it goes. And I also think video cameras, and I think if we've been lax on the prosecution, because I've heard some comments and seen some posts to that effect, that the kids that got in trouble never got prosecuted, then we have to step it up there. So the last
Go ahead, Mayor. If I could, I'm telling you, that's a relief to hear. So.
Yeah, it really, and our guys, GPD did a good job, responded to the parent that saw the problem. I think it was middle of last week. He did the right thing. He called us, and it got handled. Now, sometimes despite your best effort, the police work doesn't work quite that well, but the sort of a no nonsense approach. And, but I think most of the kids are just, the thing I worry about is one of these days soon they'll have a driver's license. So, but anyways, it's that age, it's that 13, 14, 15-year-old group that if you have the chance to go down to the park, they're the ones that you'd see. And I'm assuming they're Galleon students, but maybe they're not. And so we're gonna try to get to the bottom of it, come up with a solution and improve it. So that's that. The big thing that I'd ask you to do, and I don't know if it's locked up, so maybe you want to stop at City Hall and get a key, is to go out to Pico. I had the chance to go out there, and it's really remarkable what the volunteers that have been made responsible out there, really since Dave Oles was here. And I don't know if Shirley is on tonight. She sometimes listens. They fought to get,
Yes,
they fought, the council members at that time fought, maybe Ken, you were on at that time too, fought to get any kind of access to Pico. So anyways, they've done a really remarkable job, but I think probably the absolute fact, or pretty much the truth of the matter, is that there's been no real money put into Pico since it was first constructed. And so one thing you see, if you were to go out with a kind of what can we do here eye or point of view, you can see, I see it's amazing it's in as good a shape as it is, but it's starting to show the wear and tear. And so when the question is asked, what kind of projects do we have coming around the corner, coming up next year? I'd encourage you to go out and take a look at Pico. There's a baseball diamond made, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, largely by volunteers.
very nice.
Some freeze money, and then there are 3 diamonds which are largely used for softball. And so there's some things that need to be done out there, and I think if you go out, you'll probably have a list and sit down and talk about combining that list. And
Just go into the restroom and try to close the door and sit on the toilet in the women's restroom.
yeah, there's a great, and I was going to make an oak tree joke. I won't even complete, but yeah, I know it. But you would agree then, Julie, that the place is really still a super nice field.
Oh, yes.
Just needs a real good once every 15-year maintenance on it, because only the organization, the girls softball league, it really only does what they can do to keep the league afloat, keep the fields playable condition. So that's one thing. Last thing I'd say, if you will, let me, you guys, first, is the out at Pico. There was a pretty hefty estimate on the nets out there, which I think really need to be done. And I think nets alone's not quite the right answer. So we're going to talk with a local business person about big sunshades. So if you think of how effective the sunshades are out at the splash park, and if you think or have been out there for a softball game or baseball game at Pico, I mean, you can bake to the ground. There's no shade in sight. And so one of the things that I noticed when I was out there is we might be able to put up something that protects people from foul balls that also is largely a sunshade. And, I think that would be a safety improvement. And, I guess safety, if you have a sunstroke, that's not something you want to have, but it gets intense out there. And so if you're familiar with these sunshade nets, or whatever name they have, would run from the concession area out to the home plate side of those bleachers. So of the dugouts. So it would be all of the bleachers, and it would stop right by the dugouts. So we have a measurement of how many square feet, and fixing to get in touch with Galleon Canvas and work up a quote. But I think that would be a single big improvement at Pico.
That
beyond
would.
steam cleaning, and I guess we got to fix the bathroom door, you guys.
No, not the back. Well, they're so tiny because they've got, in the women's, they have 3 made in the.
You're talking about inside?
Yes,
That's
you
too
go
much.
in, you can't sit on the toilet and close the door if you have
I got it.
kind of,
Okay.
if you're bigger than like Nikki.
God, I didn't understand it first. So it's not the outside door, it's the inside door. The
Yes,
private-
the stalls are too small.
Got it. All right. I'm glad we got
No,
that.
everything else and everything looks nice, and they even keep it clean in there and everything. It's so tiny because they have so much. It's definitely not ADA except for the one bathroom.
What I want to do then is very similarly with that field, assign the use of the field to various leagues to make sure we're getting the most. Like softball's a big deal. There's a lot of games, but I want to make sure that we're using each field every night to, to kind of its maximum or whatever. So I'll stop. Just go out to Pico. It's it still makes you feel good about that kind of resource that Galleon has. And then you thought, well, gee, with a little bit of investment and this thing could be even that much better. So
I can help give you guys a tour.
all right, if you got a key to get past the padlock, there you go.
Yeah, I don't, but if they did.
That'd be the only. Yeah, they keep it locked up time of year. So anyway, thanks for letting me go on.
Tom, I don't know about you, Tom, but I remember sweating my hind end off many times out there in a lot of gears. So
Yep.
Yeah,
it
the
does get
baseball-
very hot. But let me ask, can I ask just one question about that? Are we looking at a comparable cost to the nets? Because if I'm not, my memory serves me is about what, 65, 85 grand for the nets?
Yeah, we put 85,000 in there, and then the of freeze dollars, and that turned out to be, that's less than the quotes we got, which was one of the reasons we haven't bought the nets. I
Yeah.
don't think any of us are quite sold on it, but 85 wasn't going to work, and I'm not sure, Nikki, I'm not even going to venture a guess. I'm not sure if she remembers. It was more.
Okay.
So we'll sit down with, somebody who does shades. I think we're going to be able to get a really neat product and do it locally, and that's what we hope to find out. So
I actually, having been at many fields and been at ones that are completely netted, I actually think the sunshades are a better idea.
yeah, it helps in the safety. I mean, maybe you have a durability issue,
But the nets I've seen all had holes in them too.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's what I got on projects for next, up and coming around the corner. Those couple 3 items.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Mr. Bodkins, Mr. Richard, any final words before we ask for a motion to adjourn tonight?
Aaron?
Yeah.
I had somebody call that they thought they might try to get on, but she didn't have rural access to a computer. And he was asking about community gardens. So I don't know if that falls under, it's Parks and Recreation, so I didn't know where else to. So I told her I would mention it. That was the only, I did have somebody call in today and ask about it.
Well, I would, if I could, Aaron, I had a group of 3 people came in. I gave them kind of what I would consider encouragement and direction about what next steps. And I've been kind of wondering, where they were. The person that came to see me was a former city official for a while. So I'm not sure if that's the call in, but
No, it was some other lady. I did put her in touch with Missy.
Yeah, the thing about community garden, only thing I'll say is you got to get in the proper sequence, in that the time to start your personal garden or community garden for 2021 is now or soon. You got to get that ready, or in the first year, you're just not going to have much of a yield if you're going to try to go from, I've got 2 acres out back. I think it'd be great. You have to get that soil ready to go. So if people are curious, we need to get that, a decision about whether we want to allow city property to be used for that. How much, if any investment we want to put into that. So that'd be my advice to that person. If you're serious about it for next year, now's the time.
All right. Mike or Kenny, any thoughts on a community garden?
Well, we can always start one, but the only thing is, most tired of working at it. Next thing you know, it's defunct. It's gone.
Yeah. That is a problem, Ken. You're 100% right about that. You got Make
I had
sure
a garden.
volunteers.
I didn't have time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I got my first garden in 20 ever, and it's twice a day. So and my yield is terrible. So it's like I might as well just go to the farmer's market. So
Well, stop feeding the deer, Aaron. That's what ends up
no, it's
happening.
inside the fence. I've just learned I don't have a green thumb, so I'm learning the
Oh.
hard way. But I'm spending a lot more money and time in a water bill than I would go get tomatoes and cucumbers from the farmer's market. So, all right. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss tonight before we ask for motion to adjourn?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, it was great seeing everybody again. Do we want to tentatively plan? I think we should just go ahead and get back into the normal routine of our monthly meetings with especially the things that were on the agenda tonight. So, Julie, what day would that be? I don't have a calendar in September.
And I didn't put it on there. It will be September 9th.
All right. And you guys okay if we just make a decision whether hopefully we'll be able to meet in chambers, or do we want to call a Zoom meeting already?
I'd like to try
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
to meet in chambers if we could.
All right. Well, since I agree with that, and how about we reassess it in a couple weeks, see where the health director's at and where COVID's at, and we'll go from there and we'll touch base through email or whatever. But would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, please.
And I'll second.
I will, all in favor, I will go ahead and say have a great night and looking forward to seeing you guys, some of you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
All right. Good night.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.